They feel rejected not because you said anything cruel, but because you said nothing at all. You never called again. You never explained, never reached out, never gave them the luxury of closure. And that silence became the loudest rejection they've ever known. It wasn't loud, dramatic, or vengeful. It was cold, calm, and final. They didn't expect that from you. They thought, eventually, you'd fold, that you'd reach out one last time, that you'd break the silence because you always did before. You used to be the one who fixed things, who made excuses, who carried guilt for what wasn't yours to bear. But not this time. This time, you didn't look back. And that's what scares them most. Every day, they tell themselves they don't care, that they were the ones who let go. But when their phone lights up, and it's not you, a part of them dies quietly inside. They scroll through old messages, reread conversations, linger on your last words, trying to decode what your silence really means. But deep down, they already know. It means it's over. They thought you'd need them. They thought you'd miss them enough to break your pride, to cave into the comfort of familiarity. They underestimated the power of peace. They forgot that silence, when chosen, is stronger than any argument ever spoken. You didn't need to block them, expose them, or destroy them. You just never called again. And that's what eats them alive. Because the truth is, people like them crave attention more than affection. They want control, not connection. They wanted to know they still had a hold on you. But now, their power has evaporated. They no longer exist in your world, and that erasure hurts more than any words could. They replay your last goodbye over and over. Maybe it wasn't even a goodbye, maybe it was just quiet, casual, unfinished. But that unfinished silence became the ending. They expected a storm, but you gave them stillness. They expected anger, but you gave them peace. And peace, in the aftermath of chaos, is the most terrifying punishment. You see, they thought closure came from conversation. They never realized that sometimes closure is silence. Sometimes the absence of a call is the final message. Sometimes the sound of nothing says everything. You didn't owe them a goodbye. You owed yourself a beginning. They feel rejected because, for once, they can't manipulate their way back in. They can't twist your silence into guilt or bait you with pity. You became an empty line, a number that no longer answers, a voice that exists only in their memories. They can't handle that level of detachment. It's too foreign, too clean, too absolute. They miss the version of you that cared too much. The one who would have called to make sure they were okay, even when they were the ones who caused the damage. That version of you is gone now, buried under every lie, every half-truth, every ounce of disrespect you tolerated. You stopped watering dead plants, and they can't forgive you for it. You didn't reject them to hurt them. You rejected the chaos that came with them. You refused to re-enter a war you already survived. And that's what burns, that your silence wasn't emotional, it was strategic. You didn't disappear because you were weak. You disappeared because you finally understood your worth. Now, every time the phone rings, they wonder if it's you. Every time they hear a familiar tone, they pause. They hope for your name to appear, and it never does. And that endless anticipation becomes its own punishment, one that repeats day after day, call after missed call, silence after silence. They thought they had time. They thought you'd always care. They thought you'd always reach out one last time. But your silence was the lesson they refused to learn. Not everyone comes back. Not everyone forgives. Some people heal by never saying another word. They tell people they don't care that you never called, but their actions betray them. They check your socials, your updates, your life, looking for signs that you've moved on. And the more peace they see, the more it hurts. Because in their mind, you were supposed to break first. You were supposed to chase, to crumble, to regret. But you didn't. You thrived. You found joy in solitude, laughter in your own company, calm in your own world. You stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. You stopped seeking understanding from people who refused to understand. And in doing so, you became something terrifyingly beautiful, independent of their validation. That's what makes them feel rejected, not just that you didn't call, but that you didn't need to. You outgrew them without announcing it. You detached without dramatics. You didn't slam the door. You simply walked out and never looked back. And that simplicity, that effortless detachment cut deeper than anger ever could. They wanted to be unforgettable, but now they're the ones haunted. They wanted to see you regretted, but now they're the ones replaying every moment. They wanted control, but they lost it the second you chose silence over conversation. So they feel rejected, not because you were cruel, but because your peace became their rejection. Your silence became their mirror. Your calm became their consequence. And what's worse, they know it's fair. They know they had their chance. They know they pushed too far. So every quiet night, every empty notification, every unanswered hope reminds them of one unshakable truth. You never called again, because they never deserved another word. They still think about that silence, that long, hollow space where your voice used to live. They never imagined it would last this long. They thought you were just angry, that you needed time to cool off. But days became weeks, weeks became months, and that silence turned into a wall they can't climb anymore. They stare at it from the other side, realizing that you built it not out of hate but out of self-respect. Now, they call it pride. They say you're stubborn, unfeeling, detached. But you and I both know it's not pride, it's protection. You learned that calling them again would only reopen the wounds you worked so hard to heal. You learned that some conversations are traps disguised as closure, and you refuse to let yourself be baited into the same cycle again. They still keep your number saved. They scroll past it sometimes, pretending not to care. But the truth? Their thumb always hesitates. They type messages they'll never send, wondering what they would even say. Hey, how have you been? Sounds too small for the damage done. I miss you sounds too late, and I'm sorry sounds too empty. So they say nothing and you stay gone. It's funny how silence can weigh heavier than words. They used to control you with emotion, weaponize your empathy. Now, the lack of response is the punishment they never saw coming. They wanted to teach you a lesson instead. You became the teacher. You showed them how indifference cuts deeper than rage. They used to think they could walk in and out of your life whenever they pleased. They thought your forgiveness was endless. But you closed the door gently, not with anger, not with noise, just quietly, permanently. And that calm finality, it haunts them more than any shouting match ever could. When they see you now, they don't recognize you. There's something different in your eyes, a kind of peace they can't understand. You're not cold out of spite. You're composed out of healing. You've learned that silence isn't the absence of care, it's the presence of self-control. You've learned that not calling isn't avoidance, it's closure. Sometimes they tell themselves they could reach out, that maybe you'd still answer. But deep down, they know you wouldn't. They can feel it, that you've moved past the part of yourself that once needed them. You didn't block them, you outgrew them. There's a difference and it terrifies them. Because now, your silence means you're happy. It means you no longer need to prove anything. It means their chaos no longer touches you. They can sense that peace from miles away, and it burns. They can see the stillness in your aura, and it reminds them of what they destroyed. They feel rejected because, for once, you're not giving energy to what drains you. You stopped explaining your side. You stopped proving your worth. You stopped showing up where you weren't valued. And that's the most powerful rejection there is, the one that comes without words, without warnings, without noise. They'll never admit it out loud, but they miss the version of you that cared too much. The one who would have texted at 3 a.m. just to make sure they were okay. The one who would have apologized just to keep the peace. But that version of you learned her lesson. You can't heal people who enjoy your pain. Now they're the ones waiting, wondering, hurting in silence. They've become what you once were, the person staring at their phone, hoping for a message that will never come. Life has a strange way of balancing things out. The silence they forced on you has found its way back home. You're not the villain in their story, you're just the part that taught them consequence. They thought your forgiveness would always be on demand, that your heart had no limits. But now they see what boundaries look like. They see what growth looks like. They see what happens when a kind soul decides they're done bleeding for people who never cared if they healed. They always thought they had you figured out. Every word you spoke, every smile you gave, they analyzed, thinking they knew your next move. They thought you were predictable, harmless, just another chapter in their game. But what they didn't realize was that you were never a chapter, you were the turning point. You were the plot twist that rewrote the entire story. They underestimated your silence. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your patience for ignorance. They thought they could read you like an open book, never realizing that the book was written in a language they didn't understand. You watched quietly, observed their motives, and took mental notes. You didn't react, you calculated. And when the time came, you turned the entire script against them. They played their part like they always did, manipulating, deceiving, pretending to hold all the power. They thought they were directing the movie. But then came the moment that shattered their illusion, the moment you walked away without warning, without explanation, without a single glance back. That was the twist they never saw coming, the realization that you were never theirs to control. Now they sit in the aftermath, trying to piece together how they lost the upper hand. They replay every moment, every word, searching for signs they missed. But there were no signs. That's the beauty of it, you were subtle. You let them believe they were winning until the curtain fell, and the truth stood there in silence. You were the one writing the ending. The story they built around your weakness became the proof of your strength. They laughed when you were quiet, but that silence was the sound of your patience sharpening itself. They mocked your loyalty, not realizing it was the very thing that gave you power. Because when you finally decided to walk out, you didn't just leave, you ended their narrative. It's poetic, really. They thought they were the main characters, that you were just a side role meant to make them look better. But the twist revealed otherwise. You were the lesson. You were the mirror they avoided. You were the one who forced the audience to see the truth that villains aren't born, they're created by betrayal. Now their story doesn't make sense anymore. The plot collapsed without your presence. You were the thread holding it all together, and when you pulled away, everything unraveled. They thought you'd come crawling back for closure, but closure isn't given. It's taken. And you took yours without a word. Every time your name comes up now, they shift uncomfortably. They speak softer. There's a hint of guilt in their tone, a flicker of realization that maybe, just maybe, they were the ones who lost something irreplaceable. Because while they were busy trying to outsmart you, you were busy outgrowing them. The plot twist wasn't that you left. It was how you left peacefully, gracefully, untouchably. No drama, no revenge, just silence and success. That's what kills them the most, that you didn't need to destroy them. Your evolution did that for you. They can't brag about breaking you anymore, because you never broke. You bent, you burned, but you never broke. You transformed. You turned the pain into wisdom, the loss into leverage. You became everything they said you couldn't, and that's the twist that keeps them awake at night. They thought the story ended when you walked away, but the real narrative began right after. You started building, healing, glowing while they kept telling themselves you'd come back. But you didn't, because plot twists don't return to the part of the story they outgrew. Now, Every time they see you rise, it rewrites their memory. You've become the proof that no one stays broken forever. You've become the contradiction to every lie they told about you. And deep down, they know their mistake wasn't losing you. Their mistake was thinking they had you in the first place. They tried to define your ending, but you chose your own. That's what true power looks like: control over your story. Not revenge, not validation, just peace. You didn't win by fighting. You won by evolving beyond the battlefield. They didn't see it coming because they never believed you had it in you. They thought you were soft. They thought you were naive. They thought you were easy to replace. But the universe loves irony, and the irony is that you became unforgettable. Now, you're not just a memory, you're a turning point, a reminder, a lesson. You're the proof that the quietest ones often hold the sharpest endings. You were never supposed to blend in with their chaos. You were meant to walk away and let silence tell the story they refuse to hear. You were meant to be the twist that humbles the loud and crowns the calm. So when they whisper your name now, it's not with confidence, it's with curiosity. They want to know how you did it, how you stayed composed when they tried to break you, how you turned pain into power so effortlessly. And the truth is simple. You were never playing their game. You were writing your own. That's why they never saw it coming. Because the plot twist was you. Quiet, calculated, and legendary. They thought they understood you, every breath, every pause, every glance. But what they didn't understand was that you were never reacting to their chaos. You were observing it. You let them dance in their illusion of control, all while you stood back, quietly rewriting the ending in your mind. That's what made the twist hurt more, the realization that you'd already moved on before they even realized the game had changed. Now they sit there, wondering how they missed the signs. How could someone so soft, so patient, walk away without looking back? How could the one who always forgave suddenly vanish without a single word? They're haunted by that silence. It plays louder than any goodbye ever could, because silence, in your hands, became the sharpest form of closure. They keep waiting for your breakdown, the one they thought would prove them right. But it never came. You didn't shatter, you shifted. You didn't scream, you evolved. While they were busy crafting rumors and chasing validation, you were mastering composure. You didn't win by shouting your truth. You won by living it. And that's what kills them the most. You didn't even try to prove a point. You simply existed, unbothered, glowing quietly in your own lane. Every smile you wear now burns their ego. Every bit of peace you radiate exposes the chaos they tried to leave you with. They thought they left you broken. They only left you clear. You became something they can't understand, someone who doesn't seek revenge, doesn't need validation, doesn't even hate them anymore. You're beyond all that. You're not angry. You're detached. And that detachment terrifies them, because it means they have no power left. They scroll through your progress now like spectators of a movie they regret writing. Every achievement, every sign of growth, reminds them of the moment they underestimated you. You've become the plot line that turned their arrogance into irony. You are the living evidence that the story doesn't end where they wanted it to. They whisper about you now in tones of confusion and awe. They call it luck, coincidence, fate, anything but accountability. Because admitting that you outplayed them means admitting they never really knew you. And they can't face that truth, that the person they tried to manipulate ended up being the one who mastered the entire narrative. You don't even have to say a word anymore. Your silence speaks for itself. It's in your posture, your peace, your progress. They feel it every time they pretend not to care, that subtle sting of regret that grows louder every time they see you unbothered. You became the mirror they can't look into without facing themselves. Now, they're the ones living in confusion. They're the ones asking questions that have no answers. How did we lose them? Why didn't they come back? When did they change? But the truth is simple, you didn't change. You just stopped dimming your light for people who lived comfortably in the dark. You see, the best kind of revenge was never about payback, it was peace. And you mastered that art. You walked away not to punish them, but to protect your energy. And now, your absence does what your presence never could. It teaches. It humbles. It reminds them of what they'll never get back. Every calm step you take is a reminder that you didn't lose, you learned. You learned who was real, who was temporary, and who only loved the version of you that served their ego. And now that the real you has emerged, unshakable, unapologetic, untouchable, they don't know how to handle it. That's the beauty of the plot twist. You didn't destroy them. You didn't expose them. You just stopped showing up, and that was enough. Because when the storm left, the silence remained. And in that silence, they finally met the truth. You were never just a character in their story. You were the author of your own. And when you closed the book, the story ended for them, but your legend had just begun. They hate your coldness not because it's cruel, but because it's justified. Every inch of distance between you and them is a reminder of what they did, of how they turned something warm into something frozen. They hate that you no longer react, that your silence has replaced your fire. But beneath that hate, in the corners of their guilt-ridden minds, they know they earned it. They whisper to others that you've changed, that you've become cold, heartless, detached. But they never say why. They never mention the nights they made you question your worth. They never admit the betrayal, the manipulation, the games. They act as if your coldness came from nowhere, as if you woke up one morning and decided to feel nothing. But you didn't choose this frost. They built it for you. They hate the way your eyes no longer carry that softness they used to control. They hate how your voice no longer trembles when you speak. You no longer plead to be understood. You no longer explain your pain to deaf ears. You simply look, nod, and walk away. And that quiet, composed indifference, it scares them more than your anger ever did. They wanted to see you fall apart, to watch you break, so they could feel powerful again. But instead, you froze over untouchable, unreadable, untamed. Now, every time they try to provoke you, you don't react. You just exist in your calm, and it kills them inside. They don't know how to fight someone who refuses to play their game anymore. They hate your control, because it's the one thing they'll never have. They live on chaos, feeding on attention, needing noise to validate their worth. But you became silence personified. You stopped feeding the fire they started, and now they're left burning alone in the flames of their own making. They know they deserve it. That's the part that stings the most. Deep down, beneath all their excuses and justifications, they know they earned your distance. They know they pushed too far, said too much, took too often. They know you didn't walk away for no reason. You walked away because you finally realized your worth. And that realization shattered their illusion of control. Now, they look at you and see everything they tried to destroy still standing, stronger, colder, smarter. They hate that you became untouchable without becoming bitter. They hate that you didn't seek revenge, that you didn't beg for understanding. You just vanished gracefully, completely, irreversibly. They can't comprehend it, how someone can be so calm after so much chaos, how someone can smile after so much betrayal. But you didn't smile because it didn't hurt, you smiled because you survived. You learned that some wars are won not by fighting, but by walking away and never looking back. They hate that they can no longer read you, that they don't know if you still care, if you still remember, if you ever think about them. That uncertainty eats them alive. You became a mystery, the one they can't solve, the one they can't manipulate anymore. They call you heartless, but what they really mean is you finally stopped bleeding for people who never bled for you. You stopped giving endless chances to those who mistook your kindness for weakness. You stopped explaining your boundaries to people who enjoyed crossing them. They hate your coldness because it holds a mirror up to their cruelty. Every ounce of chill in your voice, every indifferent look, every step away, it reflects their own actions back at them. They see what they did to you, what they created, and they can't stand it. You became their consequence, and consequences aren't supposed to smile. They tell themselves you've changed, but really, you just evolved. You outgrew the version of yourself that begged to be understood. You stopped offering warmth to people who only came close to steal it. You became something rare, peaceful, composed, and untouchable. And now, they feel it. The emptiness where your energy used to be, the silence where your laughter once lived, the distance that no apology can bridge. They feel the weight of your absence more than they ever felt your presence, and that's the cruelest justice of all. They know you could have humiliated them, exposed them, burned them to ashes with your truth, but you didn't. You simply left. You let time handle what you no longer cared to explain, and time did its job perfectly. Now they sit in the ruins of their own guilt, hating the coldness that they themselves created. They hate it because your coldness reminds them they lost access to something pure, something real. They didn't just lose you, they lost the version of themselves that only existed because of your light. Now that your light no longer shines on them, all they see is the darkness they tried to hide. They know they deserve it. Every silent glance, every unanswered message, every calm goodbye, they earned it. Your coldness isn't cruelty, it's closure, it's peace wearing armor. It's the calm that comes after understanding that some people never deserved your warmth in the first place. And the irony? The same people who said you were too emotional now can't handle your emotional absence. The same ones who told you to get over it are now the ones obsessing over your silence. They thought your kindness was foolish until they met your indifference. So now they hate it. They whisper your name with bitterness. They call you cold, distant, unfeeling. But beneath all that resentment lies one unspoken truth. They know exactly why you became this way. And they know, without question, they deserve every drop of your coldness. They tell everyone that your coldness came out of nowhere, that one day you just decided to stop caring. But you and they both know that isn't true. You didn't wake up cold, you were pushed into the frost. Each lie, each betrayal, each time they twisted your words chipped away at the warmth you used to carry so effortlessly. They turned you into what they feared most, someone who no longer gives them the reaction they crave. They hate that you no longer flinch when they walk into a room. They used to hold power over your emotions. Now they're powerless. You've become unreadable, a still ocean with depths they'll never reach again. They want to provoke the old you, the one who would have fought, cried, pleaded for understanding. But that version of you doesn't exist anymore. You buried that person the moment you realized that peace is louder than pain. Their greatest punishment is watching you remain calm while they crumble under the weight of their own conscience. They can't stand the idea that your life continued better, brighter, freer without them. They built their identity on being needed, and you broke that illusion by no longer needing them at all. They tried to label you heartless because it made them feel better about what they did. If you're the villain, then they don't have to face the truth. But no label can disguise the reality. You became cold because you were tired of being burned. You stopped reaching for warmth from people who only ever held fire. Now they replay the past, searching for a moment where they could have chosen differently. They wonder if maybe, just maybe, they pushed too far. And that wondering is its own kind of torment. Because even if they wanted to make things right, they wouldn't know where to begin. Your silence has become a wall they can't climb. You used to be open, transparent, honest, easy to reach, but too many people mistook your openness for weakness. So you built a fortress out of restraint, a kingdom out of indifference. They don't understand that your distance isn't hatred, it's healing. It's what happens when someone decides they'd rather be alone than constantly misunderstood. They hate your coldness because it exposes the truth. You were never the problem. They were. Your calm shows how toxic their chaos really was. Your peace highlights their immaturity. Your silence screams what your words no longer need to say, that you're done explaining yourself to people who never listened. There's something terrifying about a person who doesn't seek revenge. You didn't need to destroy them. You just stepped back, and life took care of the rest. And now, while they waste energy spinning stories and searching for closure, you live freely detached from their drama, unbothered by their guilt. That's the part that truly breaks them. They thought that by cutting you down, they'd feel taller. They expected a reaction. They were waiting for it, the crying, the yelling, the desperate demand for answers. They rehearsed their apologies in their heads, their justifications, their excuses. They prepared for a scene, but the silence never came. With tears, it came with calm. And that calm terrified them more than any explosion could. Because you didn't ask why. You didn't ask how could you. You didn't ask what did I do wrong. You just left, quietly, effortlessly. And that simplicity, that emotionless departure broke them in ways they'll never admit. It made them realize you weren't trying to fix it. You were done. People expect closure because it lets them keep control. When you ask why, they still get to explain. When you demand an apology, they still get to feel powerful, needed. But when you walk away without a word, you take that control with you. You strip them of the illusion that they mattered enough to deserve your response. And that's the kind of silence that echoes forever. It's not angry silence, it's peaceful silence. And peace, to the guilty, feels like punishment. It's the mirror they can't look into because it reflects everything they tried to hide. They call you cold now, detached, heartless. But that's because your calmness exposes their chaos. Your composure makes them feel small. They can't stand that you're not breaking, not trembling, not chasing, not begging to be understood. You became their consequence. They thought your kindness was eternal, your love unconditional. They thought no matter what they did, you'd come back because you always did. But something shifted. You didn't shout. You didn't warn. You didn't explain. You just saw the truth and left it behind. And that quiet realization that they can't touch you anymore keeps them awake. They don't fear your anger. They fear your indifference. Because anger still means you care. Indifference means you've outgrown the entire situation. You stopped seeing them as villains or victims. You just saw them as irrelevant. And for someone whose ego feeds on attention, irrelevance is death. You didn't slam the door. You simply walked out and never looked back. You didn't send closure texts or reminders of what they lost. You let silence do the talking. And silence speaks in volumes they can't handle because it doesn't argue, it doesn't beg, it just exists. Calm, eternal, untouchable. Now they're left replaying every detail. Did they notice? Did they care? Did they ever love me at all? They're drowning in questions you'll never answer. That's what terrifies them, the mystery. You became unpredictable. The same person they thought they could manipulate has now become unreadable. They talk about you now not out of love, not out of hate, but out of confusion. They tell themselves you were cold to make sense of your peace. They call you emotionless because they can't understand discipline. They confuse stillness with emptiness because they've never met someone strong enough to master their own energy. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need closure. You just needed distance. And that distance is now the thing they can't escape. They scroll. They stalk. They search, hoping for a crack, a sign that you still care. But you've moved so far past them, they're shouting into silence. They'll call it heartless, but it was self-preservation. They'll call it cruel, but it was healing. Because forgiveness isn't always saying I understand. Sometimes it's saying nothing and never returning. You didn't abandon them. You released yourself. Now they see your absence as power. They feel your silence like gravity. It pulls at them, twists them, reminds them that you're no longer accessible. You've become myth, memory, mystery. They don't know what you think anymore, and that's what destroys them. You live rent-free in their guilt. Their punishment isn't your words, it's your peace. Every day they wake up wishing you'd confront them, because confrontation means you still care. But you don't. You're gone, not angry gone. They can't process that, because in their world, pain is loud. Yours wasn't. Yours was quiet, surgical, final. They thought they'd watch you break. Instead, they watched you build. They thought they'd hear you cry. Instead, they heard nothing. That's when they realized you were never broken. You were simply done pretending to be gentle with people who mistook your softness for weakness. Now, every time they see you smiling, peaceful, unfazed, it reminds them of their mistake. They destroyed something pure, thinking it would stay broken, but it didn't. It transformed. And that transformation became the one thing they can't stand, proof that you never needed them in the first place. They keep waiting for you to reach out, to slip, to care again. But you've evolved past the version of yourself that would even consider it. You don't play those games anymore. You've learned that silence is its own language, and you've become fluent in it. They'll never admit it out loud, but they envy you now. The composure, the peace, the lack of reaction, it haunts them. Because it's everything they wish they had, and everything they destroyed in you. You became the quiet storm they never saw coming, not violent, but unstoppable. So they whisper, they speculate, they watch from a distance, hoping for signs of weakness. But you remain still untouchable. Because you know that power isn't about control, it's about not needing any. You no longer chase understanding, you embody it. And that's the ultimate revenge, to walk away without bitterness, to rise without noise, to live without looking back. You didn't need to ask why they did it. You already knew. You didn't need an apology. You didn't need closure, because closure isn't something they give, it's something you take. And you took it in the form of silence, permanent, peaceful, deadly. They thought you'd scream. You smiled instead, and that still scares them. They still can't process it, how someone who once cared so deeply could walk away so easily. It doesn't fit their narrative. In their world, love means suffering, forgiveness means begging, and leaving means weakness. But you didn't fit into their script. You didn't play the character they wrote for you. You walked off stage mid-act and left them performing to an empty theater. Now they replay everything, every word, every moment, every look. They search for signs they missed. Maybe you were planning to leave all along. Maybe that silence wasn't confusion, maybe it was calculation. That's what haunts them most, the possibility that you knew exactly what you were doing when you stopped responding, when you stopped caring, when you started reclaiming yourself. They tell themselves you'll come back once you cool down, once the emotions settle. But there were no emotions left to settle. You'd already detached long before you walked away. You were sitting in conversations that no longer interested you, listening to excuses that no longer affected you, and planning an exit that no one saw coming. That's the beauty of your coldness. It wasn't anger. It was acceptance. Acceptance that some people will only understand you through loss. Acceptance that not every bond deserves a second chance. Acceptance that peace sometimes costs people who were never worth the chaos. And it's that kind of acceptance that makes people afraid, because it's final. It means you don't need closure, you don't need apologies, you don't need to hear their side. You already understand, and understanding killed the illusion. They can't manipulate clarity. They can't gaslight peace. They thought your silence was passive. It wasn't, it was powerful. Every second you didn't respond, you taught them the lesson they thought you'd never deliver. that not every story ends with forgiveness, and not every mistake deserves attention. You stopped entertaining guilt that wasn't yours to carry. Now, your calm has become your weapon. Your absence has become your presence. Every time they remember how quietly you left, they feel the weight of their actions echoing back. The same silence that gave you peace now gives them sleepless nights. That's the irony. Your healing became their haunting. They wonder what you think now. Do you still remember them? Do you still feel anything? They don't realize that the version of you who would have answered those questions doesn't exist anymore. You outgrew the entire situation. You buried that chapter without leaving a tombstone. It's gone, like smoke, impossible to grasp, impossible to resurrect. They still talk about you, trying to make sense of your calm. They call it arrogance. They call it emotional detachment. They call it everything except what it truly is, evolution. Because to admit that would mean admitting they were the reason for it. And that's a truth they'll never face. They keep waiting for you to crack, for the silence to break, for you to suddenly show up needing them again. But every day you don't, another piece of their confidence dies. They see you living, breathing, succeeding, untouched by the storm they tried to drag you into, and it destroys them quietly. Your silence wasn't absence, it was transformation. You didn't disappear, you transcended. You walked away not to punish them, but to protect your peace. You stopped being reactive and became reflective. And in doing so, you became untouchable. Because nothing terrifies the guilty more than someone who no longer needs to speak their truth because their peace already proves it.